welcome to Upstage Downstage, with him, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And him, Stephen Rees, typically seated in the cheap seat.
This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen,
Things we've liked,
and may not have liked,
giving our complete unprofessional
and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew,
Take a seat,
and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing The Drifter's Girl. We saw this production at Regent Theatre Stoke-on-Trent on the 20th of January 2024. Nominated for the Best New Musical at the 2022 Olivier Awards, this smash hit show has audiences on their feet night after night with a phenomenal soundtrack packed full of iconic Drifters hits, including Saturday Night at the Movies, Save the Last Dance for Me, and Stand By Me. So Stephen, what's it all about?
Discover the remarkable story of The Drifters and the truth about the woman who made them. From the heights of hit records to the lows of legal battles and personal tragedy, Faye Treadwell is the legendary manager of The Drifters who refused to give up on the group she loved. 30 years and hundreds of hit songs later, there is no doubt that Faye Treadwell was and always will be The Drifter's Girl.
But first, our post-show opinion!
A production that drifted a little off course.
Definitely one you might drift off to.
So with all that said, let's
Set the scene. But it wasn't about her at all, really.
No, it wasn't really.
Set the scene!
So Richard, would you like to set the scene for The Drifter's Girl?
I mean, no, basically this is a very bare stage production from what it seemed to start as. When you walked into the auditorium, you were basically presented with a proscenium arch which looked like soundproofing materials, and then a projection of a single vinyl playing in circuit spinning round on the screen, really, because there was a lot of projection use in this production.
Yes, there was. Oh, was that it? It made use of a lot of lighting strobes as well, which broke the setup a bit on each of the ends.
The edges of the
tabs.
the tabs.
And they moved about quite a bit. I don't know about you, but I felt that this show, the way it was produced, was very reminiscent of Dreamgirls.
Yes.
In terms of the usage of the set. Like they copied a bit of it, because I know in Dreamgirls they had those was it crates or something like speaker holes that they had those. Yeah,
they had like a look
like a light fix thing.
Yeah,
wasn't it? All the way around.
They're like soundproofing foam patches that would have been in recording booths.
In Dreamgirls.
Oh, in Dreamgirls it was more.
That's what I'm saying.
It's more like a lighting rig, but it was
that.
like similar style.
But on this one, as you said, it was those foam pads. So
it's also very similar in look to Tina as well in London. That was very similar in this style setting anyway. I mean, in a way, what I expected, even though I'd not really seen the set beforehand, I expected it to be something that was almost the 70s. I suppose it's not even 70s.
No, it's 50s, 60s, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's 50s, 60s recording studio, really. That's what it was giving the look of.
I wasn't expecting it to be like the set to be how it was.
No.
Because I do feel it like used a lot of the Dreamgirls set, if not like took a lot of inspiration from it through that particular period. Even when it got into the later scenes of somebody at the London Palladium in the UK, when they travelled over there, they used the a screen at the back and filled it full of like an image of the theatre as if they're performing to the other side of the set again.
Very noises off. Yeah, but also very Dreamgirls.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. Oh. That's what I was saying.
Say it again.
You just took it right out of my mouth. I'll just shut up now.
No, you don't need to, because I don't know. Carry on.
I quite like the way they used strobe lighting effect just to go around the outside of the tabs, and used one of them, which was just a simple blank lighting pole that just came down just to break up the set, and it was used for several scenes. One exactly was the bar, which we first saw it just get lowered, so they acted upon it as if it was the bar, and then it just got dropped in another one. as someone like walked over it.
Yeah, and I think there was also moments where they shrunk the stage because, when I mean shrunk the stage, they used the perimeter of the tabs to bring it in like a smaller acting space to create a smaller room on stage.
Create focus on it. Yeah,
because it was perimetered by those LED panels, really.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, so as in the border was coloured light, so it actually worked really well.
But that's all it really had, was just the tabs and stuff. It didn't have anything else, anything special. And I suppose it had props in terms of the mic or like a desk.
Yeah, and then projections to reinforce the locations, or if they're in a recording studio, there'd be the studio names, or there would be
the reels of tape at the back.
A little bit like the bar. There was no real drinks in the background, but there were drinks.
There were pictures of the drinks lit up,
like the bar, the lit bar behind was well positioned. You know,
but it was a very minimalistic set.
Yeah, it was
in its approach.
Yeah, it was.
I suppose there wasn't any other special features I can think of, other than just like the back cloth and those tabs. It was basically changing the set on stage via the set itself.
Yeah, and the moving tabs, because all the tabs moved across from side to side.
That's all it was. There wasn't anything big on. Apart from this one scene where they were travelling in a taxi and they just used suitcases and stuff, which is more prop work and But everything was very simple.
Yeah.
It was a very simple. I wonder if it was just a cheap production. Because I don't think there was much money spent.
For me, it was a small cast, and I think that it was, when it was in London, I've got a feeling it was made for touring, because there's a lot of things where if they start a production in London thinking they're going to tour it, they'll make it so it fits in more than one venue, because that's sometimes why they do maybe a minimal set, because you can alter it to fit a different venue when it moves around the country. So, because because it's a moving set, it probably costs more money than we realise, because of the actual movement element of it. The actual, so they probably made sure that they could tour it if it was going to get traction to tour it.
Yeah. Now, that's the set for you.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. What about the writing of it? Let's talk about that first before the direction, because that can then lead on to the choreography. But this is a new musical. How long do you reckon it's been out? Has it been out a while?
It was actually one that was due to be started just before the pandemic hit. So in 2020 it was due to actually be launched then. So it was actually delayed. It opened a year later in the West End. So they actually made sure that they could get it open again. And Beverly Knight actually was part of the original cast. I didn't know much about the story, to be fair. Which was new to me.
I knew there was like a song group. What I would say about the writing as well, with it being a new one, I felt it lacked a specific narrative in terms of someone to follow.
Yeah, I understand.
Because the title is The Drifter's Girl, but whilst we had a little bit of time with that person, it was more about the comings and going of the drifters. Whilst that's a story within itself, there was a bit... the correlation between the woman behind it as well as the actual people she was managing. Because there's a lot of drama there, I felt like I wasn't quite sure whose story this was. Is it the story of the drifters, or is it the drifter's girl? Because the title will believe it's about the woman, and I think a lot of the scenes were about her. However, you didn't really get a depth of who she was, so you didn't particularly care enough. You just got... I felt in general this whole production just seemed like a whole bullet points of a timelined events of what happened, especially in the scene where there was a lot of coming and going of cast members.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think when you've got a cast of 4 doubling up or tripling up on some of them, I can't work out who's playing who, because it wasn't until they played some of the camper roles where I thought, okay, so is that camp person actually one of the drifters, or is it just a camp person because it's a different person,
or
how many camp people were in the drifters, or what? I know they had a huge lineup, but I think what this production missed, and I'll say it now, is the fact that it needed an ensemble backing dancers that could have added those extra little twists, so we actually got the core people that they're following, if it was the woman. So we understood her storyline, and the girl, her daughter. We didn't know anything about her as such.
No, I feel like it was loosely based on the Drifters Girl in the sense of almost the songs from the Drifters were there more prominently than the story in a way. It was almost like in a nutshell, you could have done her story in about half an hour.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the songs that were being sung, the actual storyline was very short, really, in comparison to the.
Yeah, it tried to cover a lot of historical informations and comings and goings, but I don't think it did it in a clever way. I think it did it in a plodding way, and I think how it was executed as well. So if we take a look at the cast, you've got one woman playing Faye Treadwell, but then you've got the others as George Treadwell and others, Ben E. King, Rudy Lewis and others, Clyde McFatter, Lover Patterson and others, Johnny Moore, Gerhard Thrasher and others. So you've got those 4 guys there playing a couple of characters within the band and others. So
exactly.
It's very different to understand which one they're actually following.
Yeah, and another also, I do think it was a shame that the lady who was playing the girl, as in Jada Bell Ricketts, her part I felt was underwritten, or she didn't cover for any of those others as well, because you only saw her for certain scenes, but she'd have been better if they'd have actually used her for other characters as well.
Yeah.
If everybody's going to do others, then the only person that should not do that is the one that's playing the Drifters Girl, as in Faye Treadwell.
Yeah.
Then everything around her becomes a product of her, and I think that may have worked better if because it felt like a role that had been written that somebody's just there on stage, but not really.
I did feel like she was a spare part.
Yeah. Because she didn't really sing anything. I can't remember her singing anything of
I
her
think
own.
she joined in on stuff, but she didn't have her own little time to shine. There was nothing about her.
And I was expecting all the way through that she was going to have a moment, and it didn't happen. It was,
And I didn't feel like a lot of the songs... I mean, they were singing some of the songs as if they were performing the songs, but I don't recall there being any song that moved the narrative in terms of a musical.
Yeah, like they're not in order for the movement of the song, movement of the production. They were just singing them because they were out at that time, rather than in that time and place, rather than them actually fitting within her narrative.
Yeah, it did seem a bit awkward there. And another thing.
Oh, another thing.
For the whole script, I did feel like, as I've said, or I might have said, I can't remember now, I didn't know who to latch on to.
Yeah.
In terms of like the narrator, who's leading this, whose story is this? Because
it was quite disorientating, is it?
Yeah, I mean the title says The Drifter's Girl, but we didn't spend too much time with the Drifter's Girl, Faye.
Well, she was on stage.
Oh, she was, but we never got to know anything about her. No, not the girl.
No.
But that was Tina, the younger one. But Faye, who was the lead female singer, shall we say, who organised everyone.
Yeah.
The Treadwells. It's supposed to be about her, at least. It couldn't have been about the young girl, because we didn't have anything to do with her much at all. She was just like a support act.
Yeah,
but because of the constant changing of the guys, and we were just seeing them perform, it became more about the Drifters and the Drifters Girl.
Yeah.
So whose narrative, whose story are we watching here? Because we never got fully in depth about anything. And something I'll bring up here was there was a scene where we just find out that her husband has died. Yeah. And it was quickly moved over. There was no time to pause, no time to reflect. There wasn't any emotional connection there.
No.
And there was never even like a build-up of them, apart from her saying that, her admitting to him that she was pregnant. But everything felt a little tagged on. And like it wasn't really about them. Like we never got more in-depth of the storyline and the frustrations about them.
I think you didn't feel like you could invest in them. I think that was it. It was like
there was nothing to invest in at all. Because we just kept having the Drifters... perform their songs all the time.
Maybe that's the whole point. We drifted through things. Because I feel like we drifted through something.
I think a lot of the audience members were drifting in and out of the auditorium.
Yeah, while they were having conversations. And
they were chatting away, they were rustling the sweets again. Thankfully, no big family circle box of biscuits came out, but there was a lot of that chuntering. And one woman said, I'm going to have to Google this when I get home.
I think for me as well, it was almost like the production couldn't understand whether it was a concert of the Drifters or a production or a musical. It just felt confused in.
It felt like a theatrical timeline of what happened.
Because I suppose at the opening, one thing I didn't say was the girl that was playing the daughter of Faye, Tina, she pressed play on a jukebox at the start. Yeah. Behind the we didn't really mention that in the setting of it.
Well, I forgot
but they had a jukebox
at
the start, right at the start. You never saw the jukebox again. But
because all the members came out in front of the gauze. Behind the gauze.
Behind the gauze, but then Tina sort of lingered on stage most of the time, but you were always waiting for her to become something within the production.
I think in retrospect, if it was about her talking about the past with her pressing play on their music, there was still no narrative where it was memorable for us to go along with that.
Exactly.
If that was the case, then it's completely passed by a lot of people, particularly ourselves, who would have picked up on that.
Because I don't think the dialogue stood up to the songs, maybe, and I think that's
it.
No,
I agree there. The dialogues didn't at all, because, it didn't help that sometimes I felt there was a bit inaudible, their dialect.
Yeah.
Not the dialect. The diction wasn't very clear.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But it did feel that every time there was an action talking...
I just felt like there was an element of rushing through those things as well.
It felt like the dialogue was very much exposition.
Yeah.
Rather than showing.
Yeah,
It just told us what was happening, which was very jarring. And of course, it gives us that distance away from caring about the show.
Yeah, I struggled to find emotion in it, and I think that's the thing for me with a musical or something where they're showing a lot of things happening in a long timeline. It can be done, it's been done before, but this just felt like you didn't have a connection with it in the same way. I struggled with
the actual lyrics of the songs, they did have meaning, but I don't think they used them to showcase that within a scene. Now take for example Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have probably seen that. There was a song, My Love, My Life, or something like that in the second film, Mel Streep sang. And that's so poignant because that was the moment she'd passed and she was singing about her daughter getting married there.
Yeah.
So that had depth and that had connection. And watching that, along with the lyrics and what they meant, it was quite tearful. Whereas with all this going on here, none of the lyrics and the meaning of anything just shone through. They were just sung for the fact of singing it. Even Harlequin Girl or Harlem Girl. Harlem Girl. That could have been something, but it sort of wasn't.
I think as well, for me, I don't like using this word a lot, but I feel like it was quite clinical in its execution. It felt that clean and there was no edge to the production. So when we got to the scene where there was the one of the drifters that was gay and had a relationship, as much as they portrayed it really well, I still felt it came out of nowhere.
Yes.
You got no context behind it. It was like, oh, hello, this is a scene that is trying to show poignancy or something that was happening in the background of the drifters as a team.
Yeah.
Because it came out of the blue.
Yeah.
You didn't see the build up to that.
And also there was no history behind it where there was anything to do with like shame or anything like that along with that, especially in the business. It'll be like keep it hush hush,
or even missed chances or hiding something, or intrigue.
There was no. If they were proud to put it on show for this current audience, as well, where it sort of outdoes its meaning if you don't represent it in a way.
But then
of that time,
coming back to your point, maybe that
I made a point.
You did, yeah.
Oh, was that
maybe that's a product of not having enough ensemble involved.
Yes.
Because you were confused who was who.
I was very confused because you had a couple of the drifters who were slightly camp-esque.
Yeah.
But then I didn't know if they were playing camp drifters or they were playing a different character that happened to be camp and in the recording studio. And then when they were playing the Roger from England, they were a bit camped up as well. And you have to ask yourself as well, what part is character and what part is also actor, because some of the actors looked a bit camp as well and spoke camply, and that's probably going to be a bit derogative, but I don't know what character they were playing at this point.
I want to add the other bit in.
There was 9, I think.
But I also want to add the other bit in, is in the first half where they went through all the drifters that had been and moved on and all the names that were flagging up.
They did about 9 names, even though there's about 60 members come and gone.
And you really got completely lost as who was who at that point.
Yeah.
And I know that it's quite a lot of information to take in because of how many drifters there's been. But I think that when you then got to that scene in the second half, you still didn't know who that person was.
No, because they changed names, and they also played the main characters. And if you got someone playing 2 main characters in the same band,
exactly,
you don't know who's who.
No,
and it wasn't as if like the style of acting or the tone of the person changed or the physical appearance. Because without being horrible, everyone looked the same.
Yeah, and I mean,
it wasn't until like the mincing, the gay ones, you could see them.
But I was trying to think they were trying to be women, as in Dolly Birds, or like that's what I felt that was. They were trying to be bunny women, bunny girls, those sort of that
didn't work. That just looked like they were playing up.
They did.
The only bit what I was questioning was when they did the Paula, Mary and Bob 2 or whatever.
Yeah, that way.
Because I thought, is he playing Mary, actual thing, or is it the fact that they're all taking the piss?
But then I'll also put into the mix in Book of Mormon when they become the husbands and wives sending their children off to be Mormons in the world.
Yeah,
they do that scene with all men playing women and men.
Yeah,
and that looks more convincing because there's wigs, there's costume that makes it feel like you're watching a different scene.
Yeah, and it was only the one who played Mary in that.
Yeah, exactly.
That did actually have a full a wig on and something else, but still, it wasn't done for us to think that was that character. But because they've doubled up and they've not explained it, a lot of it just looked like they were taking the piss as well.
And the thing is, I can see where some references are coming from, because in, for example, Operation Mincemeat, men play women, women play men.
Yeah.
But they only do it with slight amount of costume.
Yeah.
But that's done in such a more creative way where you see the switch between each of the characters becoming men and becoming women.
Yeah.
Whereas this, you just got confused. You were like, 1 minute you've got the Mary character that is looking female.
Incidentally, played by one of the characters that also played on the part of the gay one, or was mincing around, so you still didn't know.
No, you were getting really lost in this
it's
narrative.
Not as if you saw the butch one dress up, because the butch one just played the butch one all the way through.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is quite difficult when you're trying to pick out which character they're meant to be, or if they're still the same character, because they didn't necessarily use a lot of the names.
And I mean, I did notice the work where they made different. They made a point of, the evolving of the drifters. There was each one became the stronger of the 4 to show that the drifters are changing and the lead singer's changing all the time. But I think because it was quite chaotic in how many times that was happening, you were like, I actually don't know what's going off now.
Well, you don't. I mean, another 20 years' time, we're going to be probably seeing a show called The Sugar Babes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And hopefully it'll be the,
but that would be chaos.
Storyline. Well, I think it'll be easier now.
No, to be fair, there's only a few changes, to be fair.
Yeah, but it's still the same.
Well, that could be over in about 10 minutes in the production, and then you'd be on to the original lineup.
Well, exactly, yes. It'll be more overload and less...
at least with the Spice Girls, we'd know what was going off.
Oh, wow.
You only have to take Posh out.
Well, yeah.
You just have to have somebody put a ginger wig on and take the ginger wig off, You
do a lot of pointing in that one. The Pointer Sisters. That's what they'll be renamed as.
And they plaster us down the road in that van.
Anyway, what I would also say about the writing, when we were talking about whose story is this, and the fact that when Faye Treadwell discovered that she was pregnant, and then it was the fact that the father was killed or died, and we don't know anything about that because it's sort of like brushed off long ago. Next post-it note of information we need to get across. The fact that we never got to know anything much about that particular person,
no.
And yet they could they did it in Dreamgirls. We knew exactly the storyline in Dreamgirls because Effie was the one who wanted to...
Agree.
She dreamt big. She wanted to be the leader, but yet they were pushing somebody else to do it. And then she left the group, and it was all the struggle. We saw the power struggle.
You cared about it.
And yeah, you followed the story because it was about them, basically. Yeah. Whereas this, who was it about? And
exactly.
I think it comes back to that line. The Drifter's girl, who is it? I don't know, because I don't know anything about Faye and I don't know anything about Tina as such.
Because I'll be honest, when I saw it advertised as The Drifter's Girl, I thought it was a musical based on a non-true story. It was fiction where it was a girl who became almost obsessed with the Drifters. Or it was one of those.
So that way
around, for me, it was almost like, but not just that, almost like they were always in dream sequences, or like they were there in the background, and this was the journey of her.
It sounds like a better version.
That's where I thought this was going to be going, because you're told that the focus is on the Drifter's girl.
Instead, your focus drifted.
Well, you just drifted.
It just drifted, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
It completely drifted, along with some of the audience. I still have no idea why they decided to leave, some of them, or what was kicking off.
I just think that is an indication of the attention span of the production.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I look at restlessness in an audience as...
They're on the phones as well next to me. On the phones. They're just in it for the songs.
You can get annoyed that these people are getting fidgety, but if they're losing attention, then there's a problem with the production sometimes.
Yeah, it's not engaging.
Because it's not something people know. You can't watch it on telly. It should hit your heart. It should get you enjoying
and that's because they've not been drawn in to a proper storyline.
Exactly.
If you're just being told a lot of exposition about what happened, Marigold Hotel did this, post-it note of what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just follow, Red Ellen especially, a post-it note of what happened in this year, what happened in that year, the struggles. If you just breeze across all of it, just highlighting everything, then you don't highlight an actual story. You just doing a production of a timeline.
And it's like Blood Brothers. The audience spans so many different age groups and new theatre goers, old theatre goers, regular theatre goers. It captivates, and people you can hear a pin drop in that room.
Yeah,
and that's the difference. You could put
that's well written, but also the key is in the title. Blood Brothers. It's about two brothers that have been swapped at birth or separated from birth.
Yeah,
so you know what you're getting yourself in for. And like I said to you previously, if that was called Mrs. Johnston, you'd be watching that show thinking, well, it's got nothing to do with her as such. It's about these two brothers.
Exactly, and the focus would be completely gone.
Exactly, and you completely miss the point. And this production here, The Drifter's Girl, is exactly that example.
Yeah. It's a
Which girl was it?
opposite.
Was it Faye? Was it Tina? Which point of view was it? Because all I saw was like a timeline of events with these four guys at the helm, with the woman popping in and out.
I'll also say, one of the things I noticed... I will.
Go on then.
In a way, another storyline plot you could have used was that the Drifter's girl was a product of the Drifters.
Yeah.
And nobody knew who. I mean,
Well, yeah.
Or, at first, I started to think, halfway through the first half of the production, I was like, Tina's character...
No, that was a character.
Yeah, Tina's character, though, I started to think, is she a ghost?
Do you mean the character of Tina?
Yeah, of the character of Tina, yeah. I was starting to think, is she actually a ghost? Because she didn't seem to interact with anybody on stage at one moment.
No, she was
and I'm like, she's just there.
She's just there.
She's there, but is she cleaning? Looking at it afterwards, watching it through a window? Is she dreaming this? Because I couldn't...
Which ties in to the whole jukebox thing from the start.
Yeah.
But those kind of characters you use as a narrator...
She never said anything.
Figure. But even by the end, she still didn't say anything.
No.
So it wasn't as if we were following her looking back.
No, there was no retrospect. She was
just there.
Yeah, I just think that was very strange. I mean, I'd love to see her script.
Well, it'll just say, turn up, just stand there.
Stand stage left,
stand
move
there.
To stage right. Don't stand under the bar that's falling from the sky,
Exactly, yeah.
I just really do question that role, because I saw her take a few costume bits off or whatever, but there was nothing...
Oh, so she was useful.
Yeah, but I
think she was there to be used as a way of explaining more exposition from the Faye character.
Yes.
When the guys weren't there.
She needed to talk to somebody that wasn't a drifter. However,
she drifted in and drifted off.
But you see, the thing is, I know they drew focus on the fact that it's a lonely world up top for Faye in that world.
What, a female
in the world. But I feel like she would have had acquaintances and friends that would have been part of her life.
Well, she had a husband, but again, he was neither here nor there, because he was there 1 minute for the baby, gone the next.
Yeah, and
then that's it.
Or, shall we just say it?
Go on then.
Are we doing it on a budget? Have we written it in a way that only requires 6 people, and that's it?
Then why would you do a musical?
Because you only have to pay 6 people, and you don't have to pay a huge ensemble. Because touring is not easy, and
so where the understudies?
Well, they obviously weren't there. They could have been used.
Because
the thing is,
the understudies are the background singers.
Let's
or the
face
background
it.
People.
We've seen Heathers.
We have
all
Heather.
The understudies were part of the production. In one character
they
or
were the
another,
extras in every scene.
they were always there. So for me, if you've got understudies available, use them as part of the production, because then they can become the others.
Exactly. If they're only going to be in it for one scene, saying, yes, I'm like Benny Hill or whatever, the next minute, or Benny Hill's gone, then just play that character. The next minute, you could be behind the bar doing such and such.
Exactly.
So you could be doing the taxi driver or something else.
Yeah, and I think that would have then made use of...
You'd focus more on the core ones, even though some of them doubled up.
You really would.
But it would have allowed those characters who were doubling up to have had a little bit more time off stage, so you to have forgotten them, for them to have come on with a completely different persona as the next one who's going to stay for the duration.
Because you've got 5 covers, and for me, 3 of them were drifter covers, so they would have known the others' parts.
Yeah.
So why not utilise
that? And they could have played
that?
the Bob, Mary and Peter too, or whatever that.
Exactly. And
I've got a Hammer song.
And also you've got two female covers as well. So you
could
have easily played the females.
Well, instead of confusing everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's where this sort of falls by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah.
Because small casts put you on the spot you've got to be on your game to.
But what I'd say to that is, it would have been okay them all duplicating those roles if they were all an ensemble, bar Faye Treadwell.
Yeah.
But because it wasn't written to be all about her, it was about them singing and them in the limelight, that's where you need people, if they're going to be in it, to be in it and not messed about with.
Definitely.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say, we're here for the drama. I would actually like to just take this opportunity to say that I think all the cast that we saw tonight were exceptional.
Yeah.
Their singing...
Vocal ability,
their singing performances were spot on.
And harmonies were spot on as well. Everything...
and the dance moves were amicable.
They all felt like a carbon copy of the Drifters. So, special mention to the actual choreography of that side of it. That felt real. It felt authentic.
Yeah, thanks for
that. That's okay.
Just steal my thunder. And I would also like to say that I thought Kylie Mercedes-Dyer as Faye performed really well.
She was brilliant.
Faye. Even though it should have been more about her,
yes,
she definitely had the stage presence whenever she walked onto it to break up the scenes. It's just a shame, really, that we never really understood many of the characters within the storyline itself.
No, and that's not detriment to the actual performers. It's the actual,
not.
The writing doesn't help when it's like this sort of production.
At the end of the day, it's an acting job.
It is.
Everyone's got to put food on the table.
Yeah.
In terms of the costume and the props, I felt that the costumes were just quite... They were all right.
I think they were of the time. They were right.
They were nice and showcasey, show busy.
And they moved with the eras that they were in.
I thought you were going to say wind.
Yeah, with the wind.
Move with the wind.
Yeah, they moved with the eras that they were in. They didn't just stay in one costume all the way through. You did feel like they was moving through the timeline,
Yeah, and I would say, I suppose I would have to say this, when I did notice that they were playing other characters, they did have different props.
Yes.
Like when some of the guys would be in the bar, maids with the things in the hair.
Yeah.
I mean, those sort of things, they would probably work if I understood that they were doing a different character, but I assumed it was they were still playing the character, just taking the mick, being funny.
Yeah.
So that particular choice of direction or whatever.
Yeah, I think.
We completely missed out on the direction.
We can do it.
Oh well, we'll just do it here.
We'll just do it here.
We'll just do it here. Yeah. Here for the drama.
Here for the drama. No, I do think that it was little things like the receptionists in the hotels. There was definite changes with each of the characters doing the different accents and the movie around this country, and
But that only happened once they got over to the UK.
Yes, yeah.
But in terms of the other characters, they didn't.
No. And I suppose what we could say is from an acting perspective, they did change into different people. That wasn't, they did become different. You could tell there was more element, but because there was so many fast-paced and there were so many characters.
Yeah.
And there wasn't enough of a change between what they were wearing, or they just maybe walked into a different space and they were still wearing the same costume.
Yeah, that bit was a bit messy because you still didn't know if they were playing them, which you just saw in the previous scene, a different person, or them playing a joke.
Exactly.
Or you didn't know how to take it at that certain
No, because
points.
it wasn't like there was I've seen other productions where a scarf, a hat, or something, each character became somebody different, or, even if it was a pair of gloves, they were outlandish, but you knew that it was somebody else, It's almost like if you think of the characters in Cluedo, one person could become all of them if there was enough pieces of costume.
You knew the thing to represent that particular stereotype of person. I suppose, like, when they become feminine and put a feather boa on or a fan or something like that, they've changed into something else. But again, at the same time, with certain cast members' acting ability, you don't know if they're playing the same person.
No,
just being
exactly.
a bit funny and flirtive and just being wild and different. And I think it stems from not knowing the character.
Yeah, exactly.
And what they could potentially be or do.
No, exactly.
Is there any other sort of things in terms of props and costume? Because I think a lot of the props were very minimalistic.
They were, really.
It was just all mics a lot of the time.
Yeah, but nothing was out of place. There was nothing out of it in a different time or place. Everything felt right for its period. So the microphones were the right ones and those sort of things.
We did a podcast where I think it might have been Dreamgirls, where you thought the microphones were a bit more updated than what it would have done.
You got modern day
mics.
right towards the end of Dreamgirls. It's like they didn't update that much that we were in the 90s. It was, we were still in the era
50s,
that those wireless microphones of that design didn't exist, No. And I think that whereas these did feel like every time they used it,
the classic 1950s, 40s, 50s.
And even when they upgraded to the ones where they were the handheld mics, there was still what felt like the wired mics. It's just they just didn't have the wires on them. But they weren't any more updated. They were just still of the time,
With all that said, shall we move on to the next segment?
Yes, the segment.
Segment.
Yes.
Moving on to our next segment, as we say,
What the Tech Is This?
For me,
yes,
this was a really good example of how to use projections and video walls in a production to...
No, disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
I don't think it's the best example.
One of them.
The best example was the bones we dragged over the graves of the
true.
dead.
Yeah. No, what I mean is, as in, the video wall at the back was of high quality, that when they brought in what looked like the fake sound wall was actually a video projection, and you couldn't see the difference between that projection at the back.
Yes, and what was good about this, the rain. As soon as they got into England and it rained, projection rain.
But it was projection rain that was quite distorted, but it actually looked more real.
I thought I was questioning for a good 5 minutes, thinking, is that real or not? Because we saw real rain in Inspector Calls,
and also the distorted view of a London street that looked like you were looking through a taxi window. Yeah. So you'd got the subdued look of a dark, dimly lit street with red buses going past and this sort of thing, but because the rain was distorted and that looked like it was through a wet window, it felt like you were travelling through that street. So,
and the sound effects were spot on as well for that kind of thing. And they also held up this little orange taxi sign as an example of the fact that they're getting in.
It was a lit taxi sign, wasn't it? Yeah.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
It was a lit taxi sign that they held up. Yeah, it was a lit taxi sign, wasn't it?
A lit, yeah.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah. I remember.
And they just sat on these suitcases. So, I mean, that's enough. That's all that they needed to represent the journey. And when they travelled along, they did move and they did sway and all that kind of thing. And I think that's when it started to pick up a bit.
Yeah, I think the other thing with projections for me that was quite simple was you'd got all these black tabs that were all made out of soundproofing material. They all had edges on and everything, but they'd just project over that with Studio One or a clock. But it all worked, as in it felt like the stage then had more depth and you knew what the next area was.
And when they went to the airport or the train station, I can't remember now, it just said track 12,
train
track 40.
Station, yeah.
Yeah, so was, obviously there was somewhere else.
And also the positioning of those images were done really well, where they reinforced where they were, but it wasn't like this is a train station or this is this. They took them at certain angles that made you feel like there was some perspective in the background, and so I think that was
your perspective.
Yeah, I think it's easy to rely on projections or use overly computer generated projections, and I've seen it done badly in other productions where the blend just doesn't feel right, or they rely too much on projections.
There was what's the one with the two children that got swapped identical. Yeah, they did a backdrop of the projections on the screen there, and bits on the side wasn't matched up sometimes in terms of the cloud movement.
Yeah, but then you also saw a jitter when it was like the video started again and things like that.
Yeah,
there was none of that, and I think that's important. There's also, I saw Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, and in the Chocolate Factory, in Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, they relied too much on the computer-generated projections for things where it just lost the sparkle, because they'd got almost stuff from the 90s where you're thinking, has this come from a Windows 95 computer? Because everything's feeling a bit glitchy and a bit blocky, whereas this didn't feel like that. These projections and this imagery worked well. So
oh, good.
But it was like, I think for me, it was like like you said about the showing the Palladium.
At the back.
It wasn't just a picture of the Palladium seating.
The whole audience.
You felt like they felt like the stage was lit and they were in the darkness, but you could still make out that it was the Palladium itself.
Yeah, and I think he was supposed to be Bruce Forsyth as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But they used a lot of shadow work, which I thought it worked really well.
It did, yes.
Yeah, those things worked, because perspectives can be so off if you don't match them, mirror the movements.
And also by having those figures, those shadow figures at the back, it's sort of, you've doubled your people on set.
Yeah, you have. Yeah,
in a way, because they I wouldn't say they doubled up as backing singers, but they were there to show that they were the drifters that were on.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the four that we were watching could be the other people, other characters at the time.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That separated the characters out a little bit, but I still don't think it was enough.
No, it could have done it more, but I think,
Yeah, the lighting I thought was quite good in terms of they used a lot of it with the bars,
yes.
I said before, the strobe lighting again on the edges to move things about. I never could understand, there was a back projection of like a window, but it was orange squares, it looked like a window made out of orange squares, but it just looked like one end on the right was like it came all the way down on one side, but the other one was open-ended.
Yeah, I couldn't work it out, but I didn't know if they were trying to mirror the floor, because the floor was a grid.
It was a grid, but then it looked like a window as well.
It was a little bit weird.
Yeah, I couldn't understand what that was supposed to have been.
I think we'll never know.
No, but it was quite nice to see them do the record at the back spinning.
Yeah.
And there was one scene where it was like an orange LP spinning.
Yeah.
And I couldn't work out, is this an orange vinyl spinning or is it just the sun and I'm looking too deeply at it? Because it would, if it's going to be vinyl, it'd be black.
Yeah.
And if they were going to have orange and it's going to be like that, why didn't they just have the arm and the needle,
of course.
Put the needle on it,
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, there we go.
And now it's time for our Rewind Rewatch.
For me, the scene I would like to watch again, because I thought it was really good, quite enjoyable was the part where it became "Come Over to My Place." I think that was a song that they did, and that's where they were actually in the UK and they were singing and doing the whole
travelling around the country on tour.
Yeah, going to different hotels and using different accents and stuff.
Yeah,
I thought that was quite good.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed that bit.
That's probably the best part of it. I thought for me.
I think for me it was the medley at the end because they actually showed their ability vocally and it was fun, and maybe that it needed to be injected throughout the whole
thing,
of the production, because I think that's where they really let go, really, and I think that was the...
Did they save the last song for last?
Yeah.
Moving on to our final segment, as we say, call this a show?
I thought overall this was quite an enjoyable piece of theatre without expecting too much. It's not going to test you. It's not going to make you think more. You're not going to go deep on this. This is just... I suppose you're not even going to feel... Well, you might feel good by the end, but it's an alright piece of theatre. I think it needs a bit of a rewrite and to go back and to decide whose story this is and who we're supposed to be following. Because for the simplest set it has and the great choreography that we had, I'm still lost as to who I'm supposed to be feeling for in terms of the characters. Dreamgirls, loved it. I had... I could feel something for the characters, all of them in that one. For this one, I'm left a bit stone cold. So for me, this is not... It's not up there with the best, but it was all right. And I think for those who aren't necessarily theatre goers or think too deep, I think it'll be quite enjoyable for them, but needs work. I've seen it once, I wouldn't see it again, put it that way.
Well, I'd echo that, but I'd also say that it was a good production, but I think it just needed exploring more as a piece of theatre, because I think that's where this lacked. In the performances were there, the tightening of the script and just redrawing the focus, I think would have made it a stronger production.
The story's there, but whose story is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think that's the question.
Basically,
they need to answer and go back to the drawing room, or go back to the drawing board and do it again, please.
So we're not bored.
Scores then, please, Richard, for The Drifter's Girl. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, you're more than a number in my little red book, and 1 being, don't bother to save the last dance for me. What's it going to be?
I'm going to give this a 6. As I've said before, the cast performed really well. It's just they were let down by the storyline and scripting.
For me, I think I'm going to give this a bit of a middle ground, so probably about 5. The singing was great, the choreography was great, the set was great for what it was. This lacked story, and I can't give it any more than 5. I think 4 will be a bit too rude and insulting. This was just it was just in the middle, whatever.
So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck, tumbleweed, an audible shrug of the shoulders, a slow clap, a pleasant applause, or a standing ovation. What will it be?
I'll give it a pleasant applause.
Yeah. I think I'll agree there. Pleasant applause for the production and the actors.
So there we are. That's our discussion of The Drifter's Girl. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts
and opinions
on many theatrical delights in future episodes. If you'd like to get in touch, email us at upstagedownsstagepod@gmail.com. You can always join in the chat to share with us your views of a production.
Also, make sure to follow, share, like and subscribe to all our channels so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing The Drifter's Girl. Nominated for the best new music. Nominated for the Best New Musical at the 20... Oh, for fuck's sake. This smash hits show has already... This smash hits show... This smash hits... No.
Put your teeth in. Stop sucking your thumb.
This smash hit show has all... This smash hit... This smash hit... I can't... It's this. I'm doing this.
Faye Treadwell is the legendary man. Faye, you're enjoying this, aren't you? That I've fucked up now. 30. Oh, sorry, there's more. Oh, it's like that, is it?
It is now recording.
Richard. So, the episode of The Drifters, which we've actually just come back from seeing.
The what?
So this is a fresh The Drifters girl.
The Drifters.
The Drifters girl. Right then.
I feel like I've been stoked.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, I just don't feel like I've been.
I've been stoked. Did my front door just go?
I think so, yeah. There's a noise. Definitely, and I think that's the defining moment in this. I just think focus was lost.
Have you lost your focus?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't like Fords. I know, I just lost my train of thought.
Probably in a Ford.
Yeah, it's a Cougar.
There's 5 characters alone on there that could have been part of it.
Oh, exactly.
Ashford Campbell looks very gay in the eyes. So was Clyde McFattergay and Lover Patterson. Ashford Campbell. He's on Twitter and he's on Instagram.
Not mine.
Okay.
So there we are. That's our discussion. Why am I doing that? So there we are. That's our discussion of The Drifters Girl. And I'm still doing...
Clear your mouth out. Spit.
So there we are. That's our discussion of The Drifters Girl. Stay tuned as we bring you more thoughts. Stay tuned as we bring you more of our thoughts.
And feeling and opinions.
I'm doing this all again now.
You're the one that's making me fluff.
Right.
I'm practically A1 with the hula hoop. Do you want to go again?
Do you?
Do you?
Do you? Think we should?
I think you should.
Alright then.